Hey there, welcome to the Mental Perk podcast. I'm Carla Hutcherson, licensed professional counselor.
And I'm Brandy Mock, entrepreneur, author, and community leader. And we're here to talk about
real people, real issues, and real talk.
Welcome back to the show. We are so excited to have Jacob Talley. He has been a fireman volunteer for Decatur and then a fireman for 8 years at Salina, Texas. He is married, has two beautiful children, a boy and a girl, and we are so glad you're here today. Thank you. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy
We
to
are
be
so
here.
excited to have you here. We have a love for our first responders. We are very big supporters of first responders. We want to make sure you guys get the credit you deserve.
Yeah.
100%.
So talk to us about what got you into firefighting, and we talked about some mental health things that you're very passionate about. So, kind of talk to us about what got you into being a fireman, and how important the mental health issues are for you.
So it's kind of cliche, but I've kind of felt like I was always going to be a fireman growing up.
Did you play when you were young? Did you play like you're a firefighter?
Oh, absolutely. I think every kid and a young kid plays like they're a fireman. I was able to be a fire explorer in high school.
What is that? What is a Fire Explorer?
Fire Explorers is a program where you go as a high school kid from sophomore to senior, and you get to go experience the fire department, and they take you and you train and you get ready for the fire games in Dallas. And we were fortunate enough to go. We placed third. We got to go to the Nationals in Chicago.
That is so cool. I didn't even know that existed.
Is it still going on now?
It does, and technically I'm a volunteer in Gunner, Texas also, and I helped them with their Fire Explorers, and last year they did really great, and they got first place in a couple different events, and so it was cool to see. It's good to get back to the young kids and help them experience the stuff that I got to experience growing up. So that it's very, very well still going on, and something that I love.
You think you should create that for adults? Because I think I'd like to be a part of that.
You want to be a Fire Explorer?
Yeah, I just graduated from the Citizens Fireman Academy with Jacob. He was my instructor.
So cool. Was she good? Like, be honest.
Oh yeah, she did awesome.
She did good. Okay. Did she carry the hose all the way up the ladder?
No.
No. How much of the physical did you do when we had our physical night?
Well, I think I missed that one.
Oh yeah.
On purpose.
I was on vacation. No, but I did climb up the 107-foot ladder in the air. Yeah.
Is that super scary?
I just told them, and I told them a recommendation along with gear. They need to put a package of Depends in the in the day that you climb the ladder, because
we have to put a package of those around.
Okay. Anyway, so back to why you do what you do.
Right.
Yeah.
So I was a fire explorer, and then after high school, I kind of realized that college probably wasn't going to be my thing. I played sports all through high school, and it just wasn't the route that I wasn't going to take. Now I'm going back to school later on in my life, but I went to fire school pretty quickly, and then EMT school, and I did that for a while, and then I've been a paramedic now for about 6 years.
Okay.
Which is great. And then as you do this for some time, you start to dive into what you guys talk about in the mental health side. And I'm in a position now where I got promoted to captain. And
wow, congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you. But you have to look at it a lot differently when you get to that position, because it's not just yourself going home at the end of the day. It's you taking care of other people and making sure the other 5 guys go home. And it can add some, and then it takes away. We have our good days and bad days, but it's been fun learning about it. I've been through some programs where I've got to learn a lot more about it, and really I did that for obviously myself and my family, but also the guys, so I could see when they're having a bad day and kind of tap into that stuff. And I've just tried to stay on top of it and continue to learn and gain
And if we look at some of the things that firefighters go through, or first responders in general, but firefighters and paramedics, and you're coming upon some pretty traumatic scenes, right?
Yeah.
And so a lot of these firefighters we're learning, they're experiencing PTSD. They don't even know that they have it. Right. They, 14.3%. And I think it's so much higher than that. But we also look at, there's like other firefighters that are experiencing some sort of post-traumatic, just dissociative symptoms. Maybe they don't have full-blown PTSD, but they're experiencing some kind of mental health crisis. And so there's so much that you guys see. It's such a hard thing because, a lot of times they go untreated.
Yeah. So you talked about, I know one of the things I noticed Jacob, was when you were talking about, when I was taking the class, you were talking about PTSD, and you're talking about how certain things you hear will trigger you.
Sure.
And take you back down to an event that might have been traumatic for you. Do you mind sharing that with us? Like certain things that have triggered you?
Yeah, so I like to talk about this because people always say it's because of what we see.
Right.
And Brandy and I have talked about it. And when you go through these programs, you learn about your body more, the anatomy, what's happening. As a first responder, when our tones go off, we're just sitting there having a normal day. The tones go off, or our adrenaline dumps, our cortisol levels go with it. You know, there's a lot of things happening in your body. Well, your body also takes time to metabolize that stuff. And for me, it may take 2 hours or 5 hours, or, you know, for some people it may take 10 hours. Well, if we run 10 calls and somebody takes 10 hours to metabolize it, that's 100 hours.
It's reoccurring.
Right. And then we only have 48 hours off. So then we talk about the bucket filling up, and then that bucket and then it gets into where you're saying that people don't realize it. And I was that way for a long time. But when you go through these programs and you start hearing what they're talking about, and we're popping off at our kids and yelling at somebody, and, you know, and we just think it's normal. You have to check yourself. And really, my wife does a really good job. Well, she'll nudge me and be like, hey, you're being a butthead, you know. We have to have
Butthead.
that.
I hadn't heard butthead in a long
That's one
time.
of my favorite words, though.
Well, we're on. If I
We're
didn't have
aging
a-
ourselves, right?
If I didn't have a microphone here, it'd have been a different word. But it's important for these guys, and the class that we're going to take with y'all also is going to be great, because it gives the wives an opportunity to hear their husbands talk. And I mean, I'm kind of rambling on, but that's the best thing that I've found going through these programs is people are more willing to talk about it. That 14.3% that you talked about is just guys that were willing to talk about it.
Yes.
Exactly.
Everybody has it.
Yeah.
We deal with it on a daily basis. We can suppress it with alcohol or do whatever we need to do with it, and as a man, hide it for as long as we can. But then eventually, it's going to show itself.
And I think it's important because you talked about, and I know that there's so much professionalism in your job that when you're on the job, you're going to separate from that and you're going to be professional. But your families are the ones that see it, right?
Sure,
They're getting the brunt of it. And
Yeah.
so that's so important to realize that it's not just the first responder, it's their families.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's easy to take our wives for granted, but what they do for us when we're at work for 24 hours, or some guys in the fire service 48 hours, I mean, it's a juggling act. My wife and I have been together going on 13 years, and it's been a process. You know, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I'm perfect every day, because mental health is fluid, and you always constantly have to work on it. And it took me a while to admit that, but once you get so much more progress when you admit that you had an issue and then you're trying to fix it. But we have an understanding, my wife and I, that it's going to be a constant thing. And some guys do have calls where they lock up because it brings back other memories. I personally have not ever experienced like a lockup thing, but it does happen. I've seen
Where
it
they're just
happen.
like frozen in the moment. Like it's like,
Yeah, you kind of catch yourself, kind of like when you're about to climb a 107-foot ladder. And you're like,
Why did I do this?
Yeah.
I'm not even a fireman.
but then your training kicks in, and so you kind of lock up, and then you go. But there's been multiple guys that have ran a call, and the kid may look like their kid or something, you know, and it gets you.
yeah.
But, we have programs in place in Salina. We have a CISM program that goes out and does debriefings with the guys, especially if we have a bad call.
Right.
So we try to stay in front of it and just do the best that we can. But like I said, it never goes away. It's there. They can hide it as long as they want to. And if you're listening and you haven't admitted it yet, I encourage you to talk to somebody and reach out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm so glad you say
I
that
am
because
too.
I'm hoping that through the trainings that we're doing in fire departments, that firefighters, that paramedics, that police officers, they all learn that it doesn't make you weaker or to talk about it.
Right.
Actually, that
It does
vulnerability
make you
gives
stronger.
you strong.
Well,
strength.
and it goes back to your spouse. You talked about your spouse. So this goes on to the spouses too, whether you're male or female, the supportive end of things. It's important for them to have open minds and open mindset because they don't see the day-to-day like you do, right?
Right.
But the fact that your wife's been open about you saying, share with me, or you coming open and sharing with her how you felt, there's a side of you that connects. I know, Carly, you can probably, tap into this more, but there's a side that the women or the spouse, husband can tap into that makes them feel more of a part of something, and then they share it. And then also, too, it's a brotherhood.
Right.
So if you're sharing it with someone that you're struggling, and your wife knows that you're open with her and she's open with you, she's able to share it with the fellow firemen's wives or husbands that the struggles there across the board.
It builds a community of
does.
support.
It really does.
Yeah.
Well, if you think about what's happening when we have, I wouldn't say crisis, but we have a moment.
Right.
What's it doing to their mental health?
Yeah.
And then now you're just snowballing. And we talked previously that I believe it's 70% in the fire service divorce rate. And
which is super high, right? I mean, it's above the national level, right? So
oh, absolutely. But do you see the conflict there? The people who've admitted it is 14.3%.
Yeah.
The other 57 are getting divorced because they
chose not to deal with it.
They chose not to. And really,
That's
in a marriage, it's like you're keeping those things in, number one, because it's hard to talk about, and number two, because you're trying to protect that person from experiencing what you've experienced. But at the same time, if you're thinking about a marriage, they're missing a whole side of you.
Yeah.
They're missing a whole piece of you, and that leaves a hole in the marriage.
It does. It really does.
And some guys can't avoid it. I mean, people deal with it differently than others. And it just, it stinks. But my guys know, and I want them to have a workplace where they could come in and just be open about it. I would much rather them come into a workplace and be able to speak about their feelings than come in and hide them from us, and then it just get worse, because I do want them to go home at the end of the day. That's number one. But I also want them to go home and enjoy themselves and be with their families and, take their kids out and do stuff. And I'm not always the best at it, but I try my best. And our good moments are at the baseball field. And
and I was reading that many of these first responders, they don't tell anybody because they're afraid of the repercussions at work, or that that something in their job will change if they talk about these things.
Well,
and that's what we're hoping that changes.
Exactly, because what you just said is exactly right. I think there's a lot of departments that are still, I don't know if the word is denial or whatever it is. The one thing I have been so impressed with the city of Salina is, especially their first responders, their fire department, is they are more proactive about making sure mental health is there as it does the physical. Right, they are all about that, and it needs to trickle into these other departments so we have a less percentage of divorce.
Right.
We have women, and the fact that you guys are pulling Middle Perk in to not just talk to you guys but talk to your spouses about it. We are really hoping that this adds to allowing the women, the spouses, to feel like it's not just the men that are having to,
and that their situations aren't different. If they have, if they have a spouse coming home who's really struggling and it's affecting the home life, that they realize that this is not abnormal, that they can get the support
and
that they
can
need.
Pick up the phone and call someone like you and say, "Hey, Talley, my husband's struggling right now. I'm not sure. Have you been seeing it at work? Is there something off? Where you can kind of watch, very closely and try to hone in on maybe if you're seeing the same thing that she's seeing."
And backtracking a little bit, my first day of fire school, they brought our families in, and they said, "We just want you to be here on their first day. I was never a fireman before." And they said, "We want you to be able to tell them when they change." And because we do, and you can hide it as long as you want to, but there is a change that happens throughout your career. And they brought our families in, and my wife wasn't there at the time. That was right before we got together, but we had that conversation, and communication is huge.
Right.
As a man, we don't communicate very well anyways, but during having that problem or having the problem, you have to communicate when it's not a good day. I need a moment. I don't want to yell at the kids anymore. I just want to step away, because I was at a time where I just felt like I went to work for 24 hours. I came home, I yelled at my kids, and then I went back to work. You don't want to live like that.
No, not at all. And your kids aren't getting the best of you. They're getting the worst of you.
Right. And they're my biggest fans. They're always there for me. They want to see Dad. My dogs, like when I come home, or they're just like, "Dad's home," because I'm gone for 24 hours. But
or if they know you're not home, they're coming home and you're in a bad mood, their tail's in between their legs. They're like, we're skirting with the kids.
And I can't tell you how many times my wife's like, "I just want to let's have a good day today."
Yeah.
And she can see it. Like, she'll bring me a cup of coffee or something, and But
so, what made you realize what the problem was for you? Like, how did you start to realize that something was off, and then what did you do about it?
So we had a mental health company come in to the fire department, and I reluctantly went in there like, this is going to be terrible. And as I sat there and the lady talked, And what really got me, I could pinpoint it. She's like, "You're going to think I have a camera in your house." And she starts saying things like about mental health. And I was like, I guess I do have, something going on. And the last thing she said, "You yell at your wife for not putting the dishes in the dishwasher right." And I literally did that the day before.
Oh, wow.
And
there is a certain way to put them in the dishwasher, but
yeah, and I just don't look at it anymore.
Yeah, but no, that's a huge symptom that something's going on.
Yeah, have you ever been sitting in church and you feel like the preacher's talking to you?
Yeah,
I felt like
so
that.
many times, and I'm
Right,
like,
she was speaking right to
Yeah.
you, even though there's a room full of people.
Yeah.
You had that.
yeah.
Right. So I went and I explored that option, and it was great.
So did you get a therapist at that point, or did they bring one into the fire department? What happened?
So it's all confidential. Like nobody knows,
Yeah.
and I'm open to talk about it because I want these people. I want my guys to know that it's okay. Like anybody in the fire service, anybody wherever you work, if you're dealing with mental health, you need to talk about it. So you go in for a consultation, you sit down and explain. And I kind of said exactly what I just told you, and they set you up with a therapist that best fits the person.
Yeah.
A lot of firemen won't go to therapy because people don't know what we do. They know what we do, but they don't understand what we're going through.
I agree with that.
And that was the last thing. I didn't want to go. I've heard many a times that, I had to go to 3 therapists before I found one. So this lady deals with first responders. She had a family of first responders that she's lived with her whole life, and she was great. I'm more of a conversation kind of person. We tried some visionary stuff, and I just, it goes back to communication. I was like, I'm not getting what I need out of this doing that. I just want to sit here and have a conversation with you. And she was great. That's what we did. I'd go see her every week. And
So she really met you where you were at. Instead of trying to have her own program, she was like, oh, that doesn't work. Let's find what works for you.
Absolutely. And that's huge because if they get into this and they fail with a therapist,
They're not going to go back.
They're not going to go back.
Right. And so it's important to find somebody and reach out to people who actually deal with first responders because they know how to navigate. And she helped me, get better at communicating and then having that more conversations with my wife and being able for her to check me. I don't always like it, but she's like, "You're being a butthead again."
You're being a douchebag.
Yeah.
So have you and your wife done some sessions together to help her better know what you need in those moments?
So no, we had talked about it, and I'll be honest, it was a bad, like at work, I was 100% fine, but when I got home and walked through the doors, I was like, at that moment in my life, it wasn't good. And we had talked about it, but then I, kind of worked on myself and started working out more and get my mind right. And the biggest thing is if you find something that you love to do, you need to take that time for yourself.
Yeah.
And for me, it's fishing. So you'll see me on my kayak often.
Big fish, too. Big fish.
I call it catching, but most people call it fishing.
He's catching.
So find something that you love to do and just go take some time, whether it's 30 minutes, an hour, be with yourself, get your mind right, and then come back. And
I think that's so important because it's very important to let the spouses know that's what
That you're
what
not
you
running
need.
away.
Yeah, you're
Right.
not running
Yeah.
away. You're decompressing.
Absolutely.
You're actually
It's a coping
processing.
skill. It's a healthy coping skill,
Yeah.
right? So you
Yeah.
can do a lot of unhealthy things such as drinking and self-medicating, or you can do something a little more healthy.
Catching.
Catching. A little
Yeah.
catching.
Catching.
I mean, even after Citizens Fire Academy, I'm not the best at public speaking, so it brings my mental health up a
He
little
did
bit.
great, just for the record.
But when I got home, I had to decompress and
Yeah.
sit there. And my wife's like, "You coming to bed?" And I just needed time for myself, finish watching a basketball game or whatever it may be, and just come back down to life.
And that's very true. I worked in an ER, and it's very tough. And so I can imagine, and the things that came in, but that's what I would have to do. And,
Right.
and,
Well,
and
and
that's really a healthy thing to do.
I met his wife the other day for the first time. Beautiful woman, and just you could tell I didn't have much of a conversation. Just you could tell by her demeanor, she's very reserved.
Yes.
Right.
And so you're also playing with those different personalities,
Yes.
know.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
You seem reserved to me, but you're not as reserved, right? But
Yeah.
it takes a little time to warm up to that. And so it makes you think about if that's what he's dealing with, are the other husbands and first responders thinking about that as far as, their spouse's personalities? It's
Right.
all about trying to understand it.
Right, and working together. And I think that that's where it's really important that the spouses are brought into
Yeah.
understanding what their spouse is going and doing every
Yeah.
single day, because a lot of times they don't know, right?
They don't know.
And how would they?
They wouldn't.
So, and my wife, and I 100% outkicked my coverage on that one, but she also deals with mental health too. She's a respiratory therapist, and
Oh, yeah.
and so, but she's able and open to tell me that she's not having a good day, and then that's where we step up and we take care of our wives. And so we've gotten a lot better over the years, but like I said earlier, mental health doesn't go away. It's fluid. It's always you said it. You have a good day, and then you have a bad day, and then you just kind of you work through it. And
The thing about mental health is we can either let it control us or we can learn how to control it. And that's really important when you're working with mental health, to teach people that you are not mental health. You're not your diagnosis.
Right.
That's something that you
That's
carry.
huge. Yeah.
You are who you are, and you have to control that mental health.
That is huge too, to hear you say that, because it makes me feel better just knowing I can't control certain things, but what I can control is how I'm going to process it. And
Absolutely.
a lot of people, like you said, your first responders, like I talked to one of the SWAT guys the other day, and I was like, well, how do you handle your mental health? He's like, I drink a case of beer every night. And I'm like, dude, not cool.
Right.
Like, that's not the way to process, right?
so if I sat here and told you I didn't drink often, it would be a lie. But my wife will catch me and be like, hey, and
Yeah.
I don't drink the hard stuff. I'm a beer guy, but
Yeah.
she'll be like, it's a lot of beer this week. I'm like, okay, I'll back off a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah.
There's a program I did when I really started this journey. It was 75 Hard, where you do 2 workouts a day, no alcohol, you stick to a diet, you read 10 pages, and really dove, like I focused mine towards the fire service because it's what we do for a living. And you go 75 days, and I did it. I lost like 48 pounds. Mental health
Wow.
is great. I need to do it again, as you could
Yeah,
tell.
we want that program.
Yeah,
We got some photo shoots coming up.
right.
Oh, got to give up the stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But talking about having a moment for yourself, putting headphones on and going for a run, or I would do the weighted vest rucks and stuff, and it was powerful, the change that happened. And unfortunately, I let myself kind of get back to where I was before. But if anybody needs that outlet, I mean, that was the perfect way to start, because you're taking away the alcohol and the stuff that's bad for you, and you're eating well, your body's processing things well, and you're working out, so your cardiovascular is better, you're sleeping more,
Feel better. You're mentally in shape. I mean,
Absolutely.
you're all the way around just doing a revamp.
Yeah, and we talked about in CFA about mental toughness, and we have to train our mental toughness just as much as we train on our physical abilities
Yeah.
and what we do when we go out in the public. But anytime we do something hard, I always tell the class, anytime we do something hard, that's putting a mental toughness notch on our belt, and we're just kind of growing that and training that. And so when we get into a mentally tough situation, like we talked about earlier, where somebody kind of locks up a little bit, you're able to push through in the moment, and then we'll talk about it later. And I love that we're talking about it. I love that people are going to be able to talk about it more, and hopefully we can make that 14.3 to 100%.
Yeah.
Would love that.
Not that I want everybody to deal with mental health problems, but
But you said it's inevitable in your field.
It is.
yeah, and that's just my opinion. Somebody else may tell you, man, he's just soft, or one fire chief said the problem with the fire service is they drink creamer in their coffee now. We didn't used to do that,
Oh.
Yeah, but you know what,
I
though?
do love some creamer, though.
You saying that, though, is so true, because that's an old mentality.
Right.
It is
And
an old mentality.
You got to add the creamer to the coffee now. That is an old mentality that it's like we were just talking to our last guest about.
But it builds walls.
Yeah, about corporal punishment in schools. Well, we got the paddle when we were growing up. If
Right.
you're not doing anymore, we've become soft. Whereas to this right here's a reversal. We're not tough on mental health anymore. We need to destigmatize it. We need to let everybody know it's okay.
And when I was
For
looking
sure.
up statistics nationally, if you're not struggling with PTSD, that 87% of first responders screen positive for other mental health conditions, which means they're dealing with other things. Whether they're diagnosed PTSD, other things are coming out, and they have to be through the experience. So that's almost, we're in the 90% now. So,
Right.
we're closer to that, 100% that we were just talking about. And so we can't just push it away and say, you got to be strong, because really dealing with it is strength.
That is strength to me,
Yeah.
big time.
So for me, as a captain now, I have a morning meeting. Every morning we talk. My guys are in the office, and that's just a way for me to gauge how's our day looking. Somebody's tired. Somebody's not having a good day. You could tell when somebody's off. We work together 120 days, a third of our lives. So
They're your brothers and sisters.
Yeah. We eat together. We have a dorm room that everybody sleeps in the same room. It's all open. But that is my way to gauge how we're looking for the day. And then I also check myself. So I get to work early. And hopefully this will help somebody that's listening, but I get to work extremely way too early, and I don't need to get there that early, but that's my time to drink coffee, watch the top 10 plays on SportsCenter, and I don't have my kids or my wife there, which I love to death, but that is my moment before I go to work to get my mind right. And then right before our morning meeting, I go to the office and take notes and write down stuff that we're going to talk about. And then I'll ask them, mental health is a big thing. Guys had a bad call yesterday. If you guys need something, let me know, be open and honest about.
Do y'all have a debriefing process for that?
We do. So a few years back, it was, I think 4 or 5 people went to it, and people have lives, right? So they can't always be called in. Right now we have a few guys that'll come and be dispatched essentially to the station, and my driver is one of them. So we were on a gas leak the other day, and we were talking about me coming to do this podcast, and we just talked about mental health the whole time, basically.
Oh, it kind of opened the door.
Yeah, and so we can't do much on a gas leak. We have to wait on the gas company, but we have to stay there the whole time. And it just, new guys talking about it, that your driver's talking about it. Like, it's just we're trying to build a good culture to where it's okay.
Yeah.
But that is change. You're changing the environment by doing that. By opening those conversations, you're making change.
And especially, I don't know if I'm not aging you, but we're not young pups anymore. I mean, you're younger than us, but the ones that I saw, they're babies. They're like our kids' age, like 22, 23 years old firemen. So you're almost mentoring them. You're able to say, hey, I'm an older guy, and I'm okay with doing this. And honestly, you're kind of hitting them ahead of time, the ones that aren't married.
Right.
That are still single, and they're still learning just the business. And then on top of that, you're saying, hey, before you make any of these steps, take care of your mental health. Let's make sure you're maintaining it properly. And I love that. The
way that we grow as leaders in leadership position is and even with our kids, we teach you to not make the same mistakes that we did.
Absolutely.
And I pass on to everybody, like, tell your spouse to let you know when you're struggling, because we could be blind to it. That's just like your body. We just think it's normal. Well, we don't realize what it looks like to other people because we're not them. And we don't see ourselves through their eyes. But I tell everybody that I have the chance to, like, let your wife be able to tell you and have that communication, because if my wife never did, like, we probably wouldn't be married still, because we were going down a road that was not good, and it was all me, really. But
well, it was you in a way that you were holding all that in rather than finding healthy outlets for it. Sure. So, I mean, that's just so important for people to realize how much these things can affect your personality. Like you said, they told you on your very first day that you're going to have a change.
Right.
And people need to understand that right from the beginning, so that they know as that change is happening, what is happening.
And I'm going to ask you a question, and then it's going to ping off you, Carla, because I've heard this so many times where you guys witness something traumatic, a child losing their life, whatever, and you come home and you're just in this mood, and you know, how many times have you shared with your spouse, you have no idea what I've been through. You don't know what I've seen. You have no idea. You set, and I'm not saying these are your words, but I've heard so many people go, you sit back, you know, all you have to do is take care of the kids, clean the house, and I'm out there having to save lives. I've heard that come from these people. How do you tell someone, I mean, as a spouse sitting back, I go, no, I don't know that, but you chose the field you're in.
Right.
So to me, when you're choosing that field, you've got to go ahead and assume all these scenarios are going to take place in your life. And I think it's important as a therapist for you to make sure that you're processing it and sharing it with your spouse instead of taking on that whole you have no idea. Because I'll be honest with you, I don't have any idea. I don't want to. I don't want to see that. I don't want to experience it. But how much does it take away from...
What we don't understand is talking about it makes it better, but we're choosing not to talk about it because we think that we can't talk about it. And if we talk about it, it's going to open up all these wounds and doors and things that are going to make us really uncomfortable. But without talking about it, we're not actually dealing with it.
Right. And I'm sure those words have come out of my mouth in the worst part of what I was going through. But my wife and I, like, she's my safety blanket. So, and we're both in the medical field. She does the respiratory side, and then obviously I'm in the fire side. But I can tell her about that stuff, and we'll sit on the back porch and have conversations, and she allows me to get that stuff out, which is important.
I love her.
Yeah, she's wonderful, and hopefully she listens all the way to this point because I love her. But yeah, being able, and that took time to learn also.
Yeah.
Because I would hold it in, and the worst thing you can hear from a fireman is, "I'm fine," and then I didn't know how to explain it. So she's like, she knew something was wrong. "I'm fine," and then, well, what's the problem? I don't know. I didn't know how to explain it because you don't expect it to happen, and if you can imagine being a 20-year-old kid in fire school and they're like, "You're going to change." I'm like, I'm not going to change. This can't change me. And then I felt like, I could always turn this off, when I get home, when I come through the door, leave work at work. And our fire department has done a fantastic job of taking things away that keep us involved at work, at home. For example, we used to get every call on our phones, no matter if you were working that day or not. And so what does that do? You're at home with your family.
Yeah, you can't enjoy. You're not focused.
Right. You pull your phone out and you're like, "Oh, I'm going to see what they're going on. Dang, I got a fire." So you're back into that mentality instead of taking or, leaving it at work. Another thing we did was we used to have call boards in our kitchen. So guys would sit there and stare at the call board, and they're not there. Be able to relax, just let it happen. I've seen guys take 30-second showers because they're afraid they're going to get a call. And I was the same way. But enjoy yourself at work.
Yeah.
And we have those opportunities. We have all the facilities to take a shower.
Yeah.
If it happens, it's going to happen.
Right.
We never know when the tones are going to go off. And that's my favorite part of the job is it could be anything at any time, and we're just there ready for the community, and it's great. But just enjoy yourself at work. Be able to let that go. Be able to sleep.
Right.
I don't want to ramble too far, but I remember the first time they're like, "Talley, you're driving the ambulance." I'm like, "Crap, I'm going to drive the ambulance today." And I stayed awake staring at the ceiling because I was like, I don't want to get a call right now because it's me driving,
Yeah.
And that was very early on, I was just nervous. But you drive an ambulance enough and it just becomes,
and it's just a second nature.
Yeah. But you don't realize how little things can affect people. And as you get into that even deeper, you don't realize what somebody else is going through.
Right.
And you get a slow fireman at a slow station it happens, but that gives them an opportunity to start thinking about other things and start complaining about other things, and they could be complaining about somebody else when they don't know what that person could be going through.
Yeah.
And then it just snowballs from there. And
I think that's true to life. When we are complaining about people, we don't know what their truth is. We don't know what they're dealing with. And so I think that's a really good point. And we've talked a little bit, we've kind of made reference to your mental health, but was yours a gradual building or was it a specific thing that really set you in a different direction?
So mine was gradual, like kind of building up over time. And, you try to find the right way to say it. And like I said, I didn't know how to explain it because it just kind of was like, well, my wife's telling me that I got a problem, but I don't know what's going on. Like you don't. And, lost my train of thought, but so you don't know what's going on. So it's hard to explain. And then you get to the point where, is my mental health as important as this guy who has seen more and done more than me? And then that suppresses people because they're like, if you get into a group setting, if this guy has been a fireman for 15 years, well, I've only been doing it for almost 10 years. Like,
so you start to qualify it, right?
Yeah. So
well, I didn't even think about it that way, actually.
Yeah. So then they discount theirs, like, well, I'm fine.
Yeah.
And but you may not be, and then it just piles, right? And then you have, we talked about it earlier, yelling at your kids or popping off at your wife or whatever it may be, driving down the road and giving somebody the middle finger when they were just,
just driving erratically, doing things that you wouldn't normally do impulsively.
Right. So don't ever, I say this to the people listening, don't ever discount your mental health for somebody else's. Everybody's important.
I love that.
Everybody should be able to talk about it. And those people that have more experience than you may be able to help you along the way also because they've dealt with it a little bit longer. But everybody's different and everybody's important and their mental health is hugely important.
Well, it goes back to saying what you're saying. The one guy that shares the story of being like this traumatic event, and the next guy is going to share his, and he's like, my story's not like that. But he's not realizing that guy might have started with the same story that he was not going to share because he didn't think it was going to be as impactful, or he's got nothing he's dealing with. So I think it's really important. And another really important thing I think you said was when you sat down with your wife and you're like, I'm not okay, but I don't know why I'm not okay.
Right.
That's perfectly okay to do, to where it opens up the door for the spouses to understand, okay, he's not okay. He's not sure why he's not okay, but he's not okay. I mean, he's just sharing it at that point, right?
Right. 100%. So again, everybody's going to handle mental health differently. And whether someone's got 15 years experience or 2 years experience, the mental health isn't comparable because everyone handles it so differently.
Yeah.
Right. And it's important as you guys get into more fire departments and stuff to just understand that part of it, because there will be guys in a group setting that you'll see them sitting back and kind of being more quiet, but because they're afraid to put it out there. And I was never a war veteran, but I work with war veterans, and we still talk about it. And they've obviously, their route was a little different, but it's all the same at the end of the day. And we are in the business of taking care of people, but we fail at the fire station of taking care of our guys. And it happens daily, but, you know, all we can do is get better and work on it and put it out there. And hopefully, when I said earlier I want the 14% to be 100, I mean 100% people at least having conversations.
Talking about it.
Yeah.
And those conversations could save somebody, you know. And
It may save the firefighter or the first responder, but it also could save a life of someone they're working on, because you don't know when those things are going to hit you or what the symptoms are or how severe they're going to be. And it could be them working with a patient and it hits them, right? And so that's another life that could be in danger. So it's really important for them to really look at managing it, because they don't know when it's going to hit them. It may not hit them at home. It could hit them on the job.
Do you find that a lot of your team, what do they call it? Do they call it your team? Your
shift. Yeah.
Your shift, sorry. I'll get these words down.
You should if you're a firefighter over there.
I'm a volunteer. I'm just a citizen. But when your shift is with you, do you feel like you've got a tight shift where they feel like they can come to you and share with you, hey, Talley, I'm struggling, or have you had any of your guys come to you and talk to you?
Yeah, and I won't get into too much of that, but absolutely. And I'm very blessed with the crew that I got when I promoted. These guys are fantastic. They work every day. They train every day. They just come to work to get it.
It's a solid group.
Absolutely. And we have that openness, and I've had those phone calls. What I'm trying to do as their captain is build if the firefighter should be able to call anybody.
Yeah.
And to help these other guys grow and be able to field those phone calls. My phone is always open for anybody. But when you start growing in the fire service and moving into more leadership role, then that phone call needs to go to them first, and then come up my way if I need to help. But I'm more than happy to answer the phone. I have had phone calls from guys, but we work through it. And a lot of times it could be a new guy that just is wondering if it gets easier, to deal with stuff. And I would never say that it gets easier. We just learn how to cope with it better.
Like mental health. It doesn't get easier. You just learn how to navigate it.
Yeah, 100%.
And I've had calls where I look down and a kid's the same age as my kid, and I'm like, man, he kind of looks like my son, but you push it off. And really my stuff, I wouldn't say it's an issue, but where my heart kicks in is for the families. And my job now is I usually take the families and let the guys work. And you got to deal with people crying or tell somebody that their husband's passed away or their spouse is dead, and it's tough. I've had to call people's jobs and let them know they're not coming in because they just found their spouse in the bedroom. And, so that stuff, hits my heart. I feel like I have a good heart, and the guys can see it some days, and they're like, we're going to change all these. I'll tell the story. We went on smoke detector, and they just had one beeping. It was an elderly family, and they looked over at me and they said, we're going to change all of them, aren't we? And I was like, yeah, we're going to just go ahead and get them done. They could see when my heart kicks in, but that's, to me, it's special because they're able to realize that. And then they know that just doing the right thing for somebody. And those old people, if they get on a ladder, we're there for a different reason.
You're doing a call for another reason.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's just knock it out. It doesn't take very long, and it's a good deed for the public, and that's who we're here for anyways.
But I think that's what makes a great first responder is empathy. And you have to have the empathy. You can't just look at it as a job, because you have to have that connection with people to do your job.
But also, too, for the people out there that are not the first responders, it's so important to realize that these guys are so hyper-focused because they know they have a job to do. They're going to probably see something that's not something we're normalized to seeing. And so when we see them and they've got that straight, very stoic look on their face, it's because they're doing their job. It's not because of anything else other than you're just trying to process the scene.
Right.
But a lot of people are afraid of that too. I think a lot of people that aren't in that field.
I don't know if you heard me say it the other night at the graduation, but Beeman said, "You're gonna make me cry."
Yeah.
And I said, "We're firemen, dude. Pull it together."
Yeah.
You know?
Get the hose out.
Yeah. So that we try to stand behind that stoic, persona, but it's there all the time. And I like these.
But it doesn't change your heart. You still have to have that heart.
For sure, yeah. And the hypersensitivity and then hypervigilance that we have. We talked before this program that it's hard for me to even watch my kids play, because I've seen what happens if you jump off a swing and you land wrong.
Yes.
And my 6-year-old daughter, my heart drops every time she swings, because I'm just
I didn't think about that though. That's like
I
a form of
didn't
PTSD,
either. Yeah,
right?
Right.
Is that not like a form of PTSD
100%.
where they're just like,
yes,
100%. So,
100%.
what do they call those parents? Helicopter parents? Are you a helicopter
Oh
parent?
yeah, I'm rappelling down like.
Call him a fire truck parent.
Yeah,
fire truck parent. He's a fire truck parent. We got to CC that one.
You do, yeah.
Yeah.
Coin that phrase.
Yeah,
I love that. But it's tough. My son, I played football my whole life growing up. My son plays tackle football, and I hate it. I hate watching. He's very good, but
you also know the injuries that can come in.
Right, and I've actually gotten better over the years. But when he first started,
are you putting Charmin and cotton balls in his helmet?
We've come way farther than that.
So this is a funny story, but at the town we live in, you had to go buy your son a helmet, and you're walking down the aisle, and you got a $100 helmet, and you got a $400 helmet. And I'm like, well, I can't discount my kid's health and safety. I got to get
$100. And it's the same helmet.
Right.
Do you have one that's $1,000?
Right. So we went with the $400 helmet because
you wanted
better protection.
best,
But I wouldn't say I hate watching it, because I love watching my son play sports. I just came from his baseball game. I think they got beat pretty bad in the second one, but that's okay.
Yeah, it's just a game.
Yeah, it's a learning.
It's a learning experience. Yep.
But yeah, it's hard for me to watch sometimes, because like he goes to hit somebody or somebody hits him, and it's just like, is he okay? And he jumps right back up, and he's fired up about it. So it's all me. Like I'm doing that to myself, like working myself up, which I've gotten a lot better about it. So
it doesn't just stop at the station. It
doesn't.
continues actually.
Right.
Which is, you think about that. And I never even thought of it the way he's just thinking about it. He's seeing a child, his same child's age.
Yeah.
And something happens, and it's like you become the fireman parent. What'd you call it?
Fire truck parent.
Fire truck parent.
And you have to remember that, a lot of jobs we can go to work, we can go home, and we can leave it at work, right? But being a first responder, being a firefighter,
it's never ending.
It's never ending. And so, and there's a lot of jobs out there like that. Doctors and all kinds of, medical field and so many fields have that situation. But we really have to focus on, it's really hard for you to walk away. It's hard for you to leave it at the fire station, and it comes home a lot with you.
For sure, yeah. And we're normal people. People put us on a pedestal sometimes. I like to say we're not, we're ordinary people that do extraordinary things. We're not, just somebody, we're not the hero stuff that people talk about, or that's not who we want to be. But when we go to work, it's business. When the tones go off, we have a job to do. Your training kicks in, we go get it done, and we come back to the station. We do our best to navigate that stuff. But you never know what's going to come. It could be a tornado that comes through, and who knows how people would deal with that, because we've never dealt with it, and it could be anything, and it's something you always have to check and stay on top of. And there will be days where they're not as good as others, and my guys know that that's fine. We're not always going to have good days. Since we've been together, we've had really great days, but it may not always be that way because we live together.
So true. And mine and Brandy, our whole goal is to normalize and destigmatize talk about mental health. We are very passionate about first responders, and we're so glad that the Salina Fire Department has been working with us to get this out here.
Yeah.
We're about to do this training and really try to get other departments to look at that and understand the importance of getting mental health normalized in your station. And so that firefighters, police officers, paramedics all have a place to go where they know that they don't have to hide this anymore. And so we want to up that 14.3% where people are talking about it. That's such an important deal for us. We know that, Congress is now passing, bills and things to try to help first responders in dealing with these things. We know suicide rates have skyrocketed, and really especially since COVID hit. So we're seeing these things, and we've got to put a stop to it. We've got to get people the help that they need, because we want to make sure that lives are saved, and talking about mental health saves lives.
And the ones that save our lives.
Yeah.
You guys are saving our lives, and that's so important for you guys to know that. And I love that you're being proactive about this, Jacob, because
100%.
It's hopefully a lot of other departments will hear this and know that they need to try to incorporate the same kind of trainings in their programs that'll help their shifts.
Yeah, you got it.
I got it.
And I just want anybody to know that if you're not a first responder, you're still, your mental health is still important.
Yes,
100%.
And I couldn't imagine being at a point in my life where I would rather end it than continue. But call somebody, reach out and talk to somebody, and it's fine. You will be fine. You got to just push through it. But there's avenues that the fire service has created, and we have an association that has avenues also. We can get you the help that you need, whether it's me or the fire chief or whoever it needs to be. But call somebody and reach out and put your mental health on the table. Swallow your pride. Understand that everybody goes through it. And get the help that you need.
And you are not alone in this. And it's very important that Brandy and I, we tell everyone all the time, you're worthy and we're in this together. We're not going to let you go through this alone. And, Talley, or he's not going to be letting you go through this alone. And so we want to make sure that you guys are talking about it. And we so much appreciate you opening this conversation and helping us to get the word out there. And we're so look forward to the training that we're about to do with you and your shifts.
So much. Your shifts. Many shifts. Thank you so much for being a guest on our show today.
Thank you for having me.
If you or anyone you know is struggling with mental health issues, please reach out to talk to someone you trust. Get connected to a mental health professional who can help you find ways to cope and ultimately feel better. If you are having suicidal or self-harm thoughts or thoughts of hurting another person, please go to the nearest ER, call 911, or contact the National Suicide Hotline at 988. Thank you for tuning in to Mental Perk. We hope our talk today highlighted real people working through real issues based on mental health. Our goal at Mental Perk is to make sure every one of you knows you're worthy. We're in this together.